Pizza, probably one of the most popular Western dishes in Vietnam. I've been working on pizza for quite a while to figure out the easiest way to make it with the minimum equipment. I'll walk you through it step by step. First, what ingredients to get? I think pizza can be divided into four parts: the crust, the sauce, the cheese, and the topping. We're at Vinmart, not the best place, but common and has all the ingredients we need. This is the dairy counter. You will find a lot of kinds of cheese here, but I wouldn't recommend you buy these. There are cheese products, which means only a part of it is real cheese. The rest is stabilizer, water, and other flavoring. They're great for burgers or sandwiches, but not on pizza. The first thing you want to get is this. It's kind of a hard and sharp cheese. If you read my article about MSG, you'd notice that cheese has some natural MSG in it. And hard cheese contains the largest amount of MSG, so it's gonna improve the flavor a lot. The next thing is mozzarella cheese. Let's see where it is. For some reason, recently they have begun to freeze the mozzarella. There are two kinds at Vinmart. I have never tried this kind. I came across one expired pack once and have been freaked out ever since. This is what we're gonna get. Its price is a little bit more than average, but the flavor is superior. The next thing is the topping. They have a variety of sausage, but most of them are pretty much the same taste. One of the things that you would want to consider is this, salami. I think most of you have had a pepperoni pizza before. This is pepperoni. It's an American word for salami, a traditional sausage of Europe. When you buy something that seems bizarre, always mind the compound. And guess what? The main ingredient is chicken, which is really wrong because salami is traditionally made from a mixture of pork and beef. And it's from Russia, WTF. I'm not gonna get this. Partly because I'm not a big topping guy, but when you make it, it's your food and you do you. The next part is the crust. One essential thing is the yeast. You cannot use baking powder or baking soda for this. It must be the yeast. But you shouldn't buy it in big package like this as it will have a greater chance of spoiling. I'll suggest what to buy later. Now flour. With my method, I think you could use any flour. But it's best to use the kind of flour with the highest protein percentage possible, like this one. 12 to 40%. That's really good flour, but it will be more expensive. Now let's grab the cheese and head to another place. This is my favorite grocery store in town. And I want to get this kind of flour. There, as long as it contains more than 10% protein, it's fine. And the price is reasonable. This is the yeast brand that I usually buy. What I like about them, let me show you, is that they are divided into small package. Therefore, it will be easier to use and store. Okay, that's all. Let's head home and make the pizza. One thing that you will need is the scale, any kind. I'm only making one pizza with this time, but if I want to make a bunch, I would do it in multiple containers, not in one bowl. For one pizza, I want to add 120 grams of flour, then the water. I want to go with 80% hydration, which is very high. From my experience, the wetter it is, the better it tastes. The problem is that high hydration dough will be hard to work with, but again, it doesn't matter with my method. You will see. 80% hydration is by weight. So 80% of 120 grams is 69 mils. And you're gonna need some type of measuring cup. And when making something this small, I think the best tool is this. The small measuring unit that comes with the saltwater syrup. The cup is 20 mils, so 4 cups of it. Then you're gonna add 10 grams of sugar, 5 grams of salt, and a little bit of oil. It will help with the browning. Don't be concerned about the sugar. It's not for sweetness. It is the food for this, yeast. Remember, yeast is bacteria and is alive. 3 grams of yeast, but low. It doesn't need to be precise. Now mix it up. The interesting thing when working with dough is at first you would think it's too dry. After a while it would seem like it's too wet, but eventually it would become perfect. Mix until it all comes together. Now, notice how inconsistent it is. And when I lift it up, a lot of dough still sticks to the bowl. Traditionally, you would transfer it to a board, knead it until it can form a window pane. That's great. Actually, I enjoy doing that, but I assume a lot of people wouldn't. So here is a much easier way to do it. You wrap the whole thing up, leave the spoon, we're gonna use it again, and then let it sit for 30 minutes. This is called the autolysis process, which is the fancy word of mixing flour and water together and letting it sit for some time. Some kind of reaction is happening in there that the dough is literally kneading itself. Here it is after 30 minutes, virtually unchanged. But look what happens when I stretch it. Look how elastic that is. And when I picked it up, the dough basically bonds to itself and there is very little dough stuck to the bowl. Now, form it into a ball, add in a little bit of oil, grease up the balls and the side of the bowl. This will prevent the dough from drying out, and taking the dough out will be easier. Cover it up and let it age in the fridge for 2 to 3 days. The long cold rise is what's gonna give you the best flavor and texture. And with the magic of editing, this is what it looks like after 2 days. Okay, that's the dough. Let's move on to the sauce. I advise you to use the best quality tomato that you can find. Oh, I forgot to wash it. And one way to do it is to not put your tomato in the fridge. The fluctuation of temperature really spoils the taste of tomato. Just let it sit at room temperature until it's really ripe. Take the stem out and throw it in the blender. Add in sugar, salt, garlic powder if you've got it, a little bit of black pepper and dry oregano. Some people hate it, some people like it. I think you should try it before you decide to put it in. Whisk it up until smooth and pour it out into a bowl. Pour it. There it is. You will notice that there is a lot of water in there. You want to get rid of that. The water will make the pizza soggy. One way to do it is to get it out with a spoon. And that seems good enough for me. The cheese is pretty straightforward. I dump it into bins like this to make it more convenient. Now, grab a pan. Add a little bit of oil, sprinkle in some salt and oregano. Reach in with your hand and grease the pan with your hands. That's crucial. Grab your dough and take it out while deflating it as little as possible. It should be easy if you have oiled the dough before aging. Spread it out while forming the outer ring of the crust. You may feel this spreading is odd, but the key point of this recipe is to make it as simple and minimal as possible. Transfer it to the burner on medium heat. This will take about 5 minutes. While the dough is cooking, you want to get the oven outside. I wouldn't recommend doing this indoors unless you have a really good ventilation system. This is an air fryer. An oven would be better, but I believe a lot of families now have one like this in their home. While waiting for the crust, you would want to preheat the oven to its maximum temperature. With mine it's 200 degrees Celsius. When the crust is done, it will release itself from the pan. You might want to shake it a little to make sure no part is sticking, and that was totally unnecessary. Sorry. When the bottom is brown, you will transfer it into the oven. Don't try to leave it out of the pan, just drop it in. And this is the problem when making pizza with the air fryer. It really limits the size of the pizza. It's okay though. Add the sauce, remember not to add too much of it. It's a teen food. Too much will make it soggy. Sprinkle in a layer of sharp cheese, and we will bake this first. The total time in the oven will be 8 minutes. You don't want to add the mozzarella cheese at this stage. It's a game of chicken with cheese. You add in too soon and we will overheat and squeeze out a layer of orange grease. You add it too late and it won't brown enough or the dough will be raw. So we're gonna add the cheese after 2 minutes. While you're waiting, you could chop up some tomato and basil leaves for topping and have a combination of cheese, basil and tomato. Man, that's the taste of Western cuisine in one bite. So good. After 2 minutes, you will open the oven and add in the cheese and topping of your choice. 6 minutes later and the pizza is done. Transfer it to a cutting board and let's bring it inside. I gotta say, that is not the best looking pizza I have ever made. I got distracted a lot looking at the camera so it's too big. Anyway, cut it up and let's have a taste. That mayonnaise taco is the worst too. The air cannot circulate all around the pizza due to it being so big. So it is not quite as brown as I wanted it. It's still a good pizza though.